welcome to today's video. As you can see, I am in casual loungy clothes because we are going to be doing some baking today. I don't know if any of you knew this, but at the end of the month, it's going to be Lent. So today's video is going to be a baking video, and we're going to be baking paczkis. Now, the tradition of paczkis started in Poland, and on the days before Ash Wednesday, leading up to Fat Tuesday, they would take all of their baking ingredients and use them all to get them out of the way before Lent started, and they would make paczkis for Fat Tuesday. Now, I'm going to let you know right off the bat, that this is not necessarily a traditional paczki recipe. I did not want to buy just some things that I wouldn't end up using, so I am doing a recipe using the items that I already had in my cupboards. So again, this is not going to be a traditional paczki recipe, but it is going to be similar to it. And the other thing is, I'm not going to be frying the paczkis. Traditional paczkis are fried in oil, but we are actually going to be baking them today. The other thing we are not going to be doing is filling them with anything, but that's okay because not all paczkis have filling in them. Traditional paczkis actually had a fruit filling in them of some kind, if they had filling at all. So they'd be filled with prunes or some kind of other jam or preserves. But again, we're not going to be filling any of our paczkis. We're actually just going to be rolling them in a sugary cinnamon sugar mixture. So we're going to get started. I've got my yeast and my milk over here dissolving, which it looks nice and frothy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I have all my ingredients, and I am going to be using my mixer today because there is a lot of mixing that's going to be done, and it's supposed to be really good with breads and stuff like that. So I'm going to start with, the next thing would be to take my butter, which was not at room temperature, so I did have to put it in the microwave for a minute. So I've got my butter, and my husband is going to bring me a measuring cup so I can measure out a half a cup of sugar. Thank you. Put that in there. And I'm going to cream the butter and the sugar together. So as you can see on the paddle, it's nice and incorporated together. So now I am going to put my eggs and egg whites. So I just dumped in 1 large egg room temperature and 3 large egg yolks at room temperature. And I need a teaspoon, please. And I'm going to add, if I can open this, I'm going to add I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And 1 teaspoon of rum extract. And I'm also going to add a teaspoon of salt. traditional recipe would actually use actual rum, and there were a couple of other recipes that called for rum, but instead of using the rum or brandy that they called for, I decided to use an extract because there are a couple of other recipes that I use the rum extract in. So that would be why we used a combination of the rum and the vanilla extract together. That looks pretty well mixed up. So now I'm going to start adding in the flour. And I'm actually going to add, so it calls for 4.5 to 5 cups of flour. I'm going to start by adding a cup at a time, and I'm also going to start incorporating our yeast and milk mixture as well. And I'm going to alternate those two things while the paddle is running. The only reason I turned it off was to let you guys know what I was doing. So here we go. So I'm going to be using the half cup that I used for the sugar to slowly add the 4.5 cups of flour. Because it's starting to splash up some of the ingredients. Alright, so this is my last half cup. This will be 4.5 cups of flour. I am going to end up adding that last cup though because the dough is looking really sticky still. As it flies over the top of everything. Alright, so it's looking pretty well mixed. I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to take a spatula just to go around the edges. See, our dough is still pretty sticky, but take a spatula and go around the top edges of the bowl to scrape some of that flour that maybe didn't get all the way in. Off to you. I'm just going to turn this on for another quick mix. Oops, not that fast. Alright, that looks good. We're going to get another bowl out. If you could get one of the glass bowl. And some cooking spray. And we're going to grease this bowl up really fast. And we're going to put our dough in this bowl to rise then. That one's fine. Yep. My husband's in the background helping. My table can't really hold enough all of the stuff that I need. Now, it did say that the dough was going to be pretty slack, which I can say that this is. But it also said that even though it's sticky, not to add any more than the 5 cups of flour. So, which is probably why we're putting it in a greased bowl, because it is very, very sticky. See, it's sticking to my fingers. Can I have that spatula back? Or a spatula of some kind, please. Okay, we're going to scrape this into a bowl here. Wow, this is a lot of dough. Scraped out of the bowl pretty well. So we're going to cover this with some greased saran wrap, and we are going to let it rise for about an hour, and we'll get back to you guys soon. So we'll see you in about an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. Okay guys, see you in a minute. So I'm back, and as you can see, I have, I let the dough rise for an hour. I punched it down and let it rise again for another hour, hour and a half. So as you can see, I've turned it out of the bowl, and the next step is going to be to pat it or roll it out. And I'm going to try patting it first just because I've dirtied a lot of dishes. So I sprinkled a little flour on it because it is quite sticky still. And I'm just going to pat it down till it's about a ½ inch thick. And then we're going to work on cutting it. Get the other hand kind of floury. I do have to say too that this dough, it rose so much that my bowl was a little bit too small, I think. So, yeah. A little flour on the edge here. It's flattening out really well though. So, and it smells really good, you guys, too. It smells sweet, but not like super sweet. So, I don't know. I think this is going to be a good one. Alright, so I've got it flattened out. So I don't have a biscuit cutter, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a drinking glass. And I'm just going to set it here on the edge. Cut that out. And then I'm going to pick up the piece that I cut out, if I can. Maybe I'll leave it there until I've got them all cut out. So this recipe is a long one, and paczkis are a lot of waiting. So like I said, I did it takes 2 different rises. So I let it rise for an hour one time, and then it rose again for another hour after I punched it down. And then after I'm done cutting all of these out, I'm actually going to have to let them rise again on a cookie sheet, because like I said, I am going to bake them instead of fry them. And then once they've risen on the cookie sheet for a half hour, then we'll bake them. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and take some of these out so I can put them on the sheet. They're losing their shape a little bit, but that's okay. Like I said, they're going to rise again. And this dough is really sticky, I'm finding, so I definitely liberally floured my parchment paper or my wax paper before putting it on, and I'm still finding that it's really sticky. That one's got a lot of flour on it. And then when I put them on the baking sheet, I am going to make sure that I've got plenty of room between them, so that way they don't, so when they rise, they don't run into each other and they still stay separate. And I did grease my cookie sheet. And I think I'm going to stop it right here and finish this up off camera, and then I will come back after I've baked them, and we will show you what we're going to do instead of putting the filling in. So I'll see you guys in about another hour or so, okay? Okay, everybody, so because my camera decided to die on me, I wasn't able to show you this next step that I did. But these were all done, so I baked all of them at 420 degrees for about 5 minutes, and they came out perfect. If it's 5 to 8 minutes, you just want the toothpick to come out of them clean. So these ones right here are bare. They don't have anything on them. They are going to be dropped in some powdered sugar later after they cool. These ones over here are the ones that I did the cinnamon sugar mixture on. So I drizzled a little bit of butter on them with a pastry brush, and then dropped them in the bag with the cinnamon sugar mixture, and so I could have a little bit of both, because I wanted the powdered sugar ones, but I wanted the cinnamon sugar ones too. Like I said, I am not going to end up putting any filling in these. I'm not really a big fan of filling in my donuts anyway, unless it's like a cream or a custard. So I'm not going to put anything in them. I'm just going to have the sugar coating on them. But this recipe made about 2 dozen. As you can see, I did only have a little bit of dough left. So there's a baby one right there. But this recipe was super fun. And like I said, it wasn't really a traditional paczki recipe. But I am planning on looking up to see how close to the traditional recipe I was. And if you guys have any comments, please feel free to leave them below, and I will see you next time. Make sure you like and subscribe.